is we have to hold on to the documentation that shows how you were graded for 5 years. So we're liable for that syllabus for 5 years. So what we have to do is we have to keep tests. So we don't give tests back. But we put a copy of the test up there so you can go back and look at it, right? So if you can keep up with the numbers, the ones that you missed, then I get to keep that. But if you document the ones that you missed, you have a copy of the test to go back and read, look at those questions. You don't understand that. Labs I don't like to keep. So what we do is we do lab forms. And what I do is as I grade the lab, I deduct the grade off the lab forms. At the end of the semester, that lab form is the documentation of your grade. So if I've got that documentation of your lab grade, then I don't have to do what? I don't have to keep the labs. So I'll give you your lab back. If you want the labs back at the end of the term, that's fine. I'll give them back to you. If you don't want them back, then I'll keep the lab forms and I'll shred the labs. It's up to you. And by the way, in this class, don't buy and use lab books. We've had people do that. They buy lab books, and all the labs have been turned in. So they come up and all they got is the labs that we don't do. And they say, well, that lab's not in my book. That's not my problem. So let's look over the lab procedures real quick. So it should be labeled pretty steady. We're going to have, there's only one of me. We're going to have, 5 groups in here. So and what I learned a long time ago is that you have some people that wants to dominate the instructor's time. Then you have some students that don't want to ask questions. Now, they don't mind coming up here putting their name on a piece of paper, but they're not going to grab me. Okay, so I don't want to spend time on one lab bench, and this guy over here saying, well, you never come over here and check on me. Well, I don't have that problem in my classes. Why? Because you're going to do what? You're going to sign a sheet saying when you're ready for a sign-off, and I go by that sheet. So it's none of this stuff. Hey, come here. I need to ask you a question. There's none of that in my class. If you want to ask me a question, you put your name on that list. I come up and I go down that list. That would be like you going to a movie and you have somebody that jumps in line in front of you. Do you like that? Okay. So we go by the list. If you need a question, you put your name on the list. I don't have any problem answering questions, but I'm not going to be like here working with you when you got somebody else over here that was in line before you, right? You understand that? I might say there's nobody on the list, and I mark off multiple names. So don't get upset if you come up there and the last name's marked off, and you say, well, I was next on the list because I've already marked off 4 names, right? You understand? So, but if I skip over you, I do skip over people, unfortunately, but then you can get mad at me. So lab procedures, we have lab forms. The lab forms are going to be up here in a clipboard. What's the first thing you need to do? Yeah, got to have your safety glasses on. But that's part. Let's look down in before starting an experiment. Y'all can read the rest of them. By the way, all my labs are in pencil. I got tired a long time ago of following errors. And this happens all the time where people make a mistake and they got a pen. What do they do? Mark it off. If you want to use a pen, that's fine. You'll lose points for not following procedures. Okay, so what's the first thing you need to do? A blank lab form. There's going to be a clipboard over here. The clipboard has a slot in it. You'll open it. On the top of that, it's going to be the sign-off sheet. You open that up, and inside the clipboard is going to be blank lab forms. Fill in the required information at the top of the form before starting the lab. No more than 1 lab grade form at a time. I'll go back there and I'll have 5 lab forms on there, and you're trying to figure out which one I need to sign. How many should be back there? 1, yeah. Check the instructor's lab manual for corrections. So I've got this big old orange book, right? And I've never, what we're trying to do is we've had to modify some of our circuits. So can y'all see what that says? Corrections. And by the way, we don't necessarily do all the labs within a chapter. We've had people that have circuits wired up, and I'll go out here and they say, well, I need you to sign that off. And I go back and say, well, you wasn't even supposed to wire this circuit up in the first place. Well, if it's got skipped in here, it means what? skip. Or if it's on, what I've done now is I've actually gave you a list of the labs we're going to do. So somewhere in that document is a list of the labs we're going to do. Some of them are marked as homework. Some of them are not, right? Everybody understand that? If it's not on that list, you what? Don't do it. We get people so involved, they've got a lab that's got 10 circuits in there. All we're doing is wiring up 5 of them. I go back there, they spent 45 minutes wiring up a circuit, and it's not even a circuit they were supposed to hook up. Of course, I don't take off for that because you've lost 45 minutes. It's just going to hurt you in the long run, right? So check that on every circuit. What most people do that does real good is what? Mark them off. Everybody okay? Write your name on the title page of the lab experiment. So no matter how many pages you turn in, if it's got something written on it, or if it's got my signature on it, it gets turned in. But every one of these labs start off with a discussion section. You don't have to turn that discussion section in, but you do have to turn in the title page. Do y'all understand that? Why? Because this happens all the time. We'll have people that don't match. They'll have more than one lab form out there. I've been signing off on this lab form, and they attach it to another lab. So I'll have the lab form for lab, BC3, and they got it attached to LV4. And they don't put the title page. Well, if you don't put the title page, by George, I have to figure out what lab number it is. If you put the title page in there, I know what lab number it is. And the way this lab book is set up, there are not page numbers. There are labs. We have chapters. We have the LD chapter. And then we have so many labs within the LD chapter. We start off with a discussion for the entire lab chapter. That is not a lab. That's a discussion for the entire. It'll have experiment 1's going to do this, experiment 2's going to do this, experiment 3's going to do that. Don't turn in that page. That is not the title page for the lab. The title page for the lab is going to have experiment 1 or experiment 2, right? You understand that? Don't turn in the chapter discussion. And you don't have to turn in the experiment discussion, but you need to turn in that title page. Because I'm making sure the title page matches the lab form. When I tear off that lab form, you better have your name on that title page. Because these lab forms are mine, the labs are yours. These guys don't stay together. So if I tear this off, then all of a sudden I got a lab that don't have a name on it. So what do I have to do? I have to write your name on there. If I write your name on there, you're going to lose points for it, right? You understand that? Because now you're adding time to my grading time. To you, it don't seem like much. We're doing 13 labs in this class. We have 10 people in it. So that's 130 labs I got to grade for this class. I'm doing 2 other classes during the summer. Normally on a 16-week term, on a mini term, I end up grading well over 500 labs. Nobody puts their name on the title page. I have to write every one of them on there. So now you're adding hours to my grade time, right? You understand? So you might be the only one that does it. Well, I was the only one. I'm still going to take off for it because that's the requirement for the lab. That's part of your paperwork, right? Paperwork is very, very important. So when your team needs a lab instructor check, right, one team member must write his or her name on the sign-off located on the podium in front of the lab. So here's the podium. In the appropriate column, write your name, place a check mark indicating whether you need help or a sign-off. I don't do the same at the same time. And write the number of your assigned trainer. Look at all the trainers up in the upper right-hand corner. They have a what? Number. So when I go check these things off, I don't write names down. What I do is I have a piece of paper. There's 5 names up here. I write station 3, station 4, station 5. I write a 2, 3, 4, 5 on there, and that's the way I know where to go to. If you don't write the number on there, then I don't know where to go, right? Well, I do, but I can't write it on my hand. Students in a team must take turns connecting circuits. Each team member must document the constructor of the circuit in the space provided on the lab grade form. The team member not connecting the circuit must provide manufacturer numbers as to where connections are to make. So this is a team member. So we got one person up here doing what? Connecting up the circuit. The other guy is doing what? Telling them where to connect it. I don't sign off labs. If you put your name up here and your team member is here, he or she hadn't left, then I'm gonna come back here and I say both of you's got to be here to get a lab sign off.
I'm not sure whether or not you answered that or not already, but with homework labs, like, is this something we have to do on the lab board, or like some handouts?
You're looking at lab book and you have a lab.
So we'll do this. Take it like this and just bring it.
Yeah. So that answers your question? Good question. I mean, but every lab we do is in that book. So the homework labs you're going to do out of the book, right? But you're going to do them where, Michael? You're going to do them at home. So we don't have any Blackboard labs. We have some information. So when you do the lab in the book on the motor nameplate, where do I have the motor nameplate at? I got that on Blackboard. But that's not the lab, that's just the nameplate for the motor. Team members that are not connecting the circuit, team members that are present are responsible for the correct. So both of you so I come over there, you got one guy wiring the circuit, you got one guy calling off the lab. I come back here and the dang thing's wired up. So who's going? Both of you are responsible for the correctness of the circuit. Do y'all understand that? Well, Joe Bo wired it up. Well, I'm glad to know that. Both of you are responsible for the correctness of the circuit. Place a check mark beside each procedure step because it has different places. And it says, have the supervisor check your work. I want to come back there and I want to know exactly where I'm supposed to sign. How do I know exactly where I'm supposed to sign? Well, you've got your procedure steps marked off. You come up to that place, I know exactly where I'm supposed to sign. I'll sign in the right spot. I'm there for a minimum amount of time. At every have the instructor check your work procedure step. The instructor, that is an MUST, it's in uppercase letters and it's underlined. What does that mean? Must. It is required. Have the lab instructor initial your lab book indicating the steps that have been successfully completed. Skipping over any supervised check will result in a 0 on that section of the experiment. Y'all understand that? I don't know how much simpler that could be. All circuits to be checked before. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your own meter to check for short circuits before you turn power on that. And that's in every lab. Everybody okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to perform a basic safety check. I am not checking the circuit to see if it is correct. All I have to do is check the L2 side. If the L2 side goes where it's supposed to go, you will not have a short circuit. So when I come back and do this safety check, all I'm doing is checking L2. If L2 does not go where it's supposed to go, then you have the possibility of having a short circuit, right? And this is going to be before I put power on that. So you're going to own the circuit out. You're going to make sure you don't have very low resistance in the path. Then I'm going to come back. I'm going to check L2. If the L2's on there, I'm going to initial your book and I'm going to put power on the circuit. Everybody okay there? Circuits that are not checked by the instructor will have to be reconstructed in order to receive partial credit. So the instructor must, have the lab instructor check the circuit and initial lab book in a lab grade form. Before the circuit is checked off, questions. So what I'm going to do is you're going to call me back once. I'm going to come back. I'm going to do a basic safety check. I'm going to put power on the circuit. I'm going to walk away. Right? You understand? You're going to go through the lab procedure that deals with that circuit, what you're supposed to do, what button's supposed to do, what you're supposed to record. Once you're convinced that the circuit is doing what it's supposed to do, you'll come up here and you'll turn power off. This is in here too. We're dealing with lethal voltages. The problem is that you're waiting on me back there and you're I've seen kids do this. They'll come up there and they're back there talking about something and they're talking together and they're reaching their hand in the circuit and the dang circuit's still live. So what you're doing when you're waiting on me, you're going to hit that red button up there and you're going to turn power off. Do y'all understand? When you're waiting on me to come back there, do you understand that? Okay. And you say, well, I knew you had to check the circuit. It need to have power on it, but I got the dang key. I can turn the what? I can turn power on anytime I want to. Well, I know you wanted to see the circuit operate. And that's a safety violation. That's not good. Trainer modules that are not part of the circuit. Y'all understand this. So I don't want to see 15 modules up on the board and I'm trying to figure out what modules belong to the circuit. So you're trying to put modules up there for the next experiment and before you get this experiment. That don't work in this class. Because now you're dealing with big problems because I've got to go up there and figure out what modules are what modules, right? We have students that start wiring up a circuit, so I've got wires going all over the place, and you want me to sign off another circuit, right? You understand? So any module that is not part of the current circuit is going to be down here below this table. Y'all understand that? The only module that's allowed to stay up there the whole semester is that transformer. Once we wire the transformer, it's going to stay up there, whether it's part of the experiment or not. All of the modules that are not part of the experiment are going to be under the table. Do y'all understand that? Good gracious, it's past time. So y'all can read the rest of the procedures yourself. We're supposed to get off at what? 9:45? Y'all let me go over. You got a copy of the lab form. The lab forms are going to be here. These lab forms don't leave. But when you turn it, y'all see the homework labs. What's the homework labs? 1, 2, 3. When they're going to be due to? When they're going to be due? Between.
What does the 1 and the 2 and 3 mean? Is that lab 1, 2, and 3?
No. What you do is every one of them is inside a chapter. So what's a chapter?
I guess it says.
Okay, so it says it's the what? S chapter or safety chapter. Then when you get in, so all the page, you know you're in there because at the bottom page, all the page numbers will start with S. S1, S15, S32. And when you go to the title page, it's going to say Experiment 1, right? And it's going to be inside the safety chapter. Y'all understand that?
So we need to do Experiment 1, 2, and 3 inside of the safety chapter. Gotcha.
I guess.
Now, the discussion that comes afterwards, do we leave that out? Do we skip it and go straight to procedure?
You go straight to procedure. The title page has to be turned in. The discussion does not.
Sir.
If you got a mark on a page, or if I've got a signature on a page, then it's got to be turned in.
Sir.
Y'all understand that? Are we okay? Any more questions?
Yeah, nothing out here next week until June 21.
2 weeks from Monday. Next time we'll meet, and the first 3 labs.
Are good.
What about that basic electrical quiz that you told us to start on last week? Just look on the calendar and see when that's due, or?
That's it. According to the syllabus, they're due 7 days, within 7 days after the lecture is completed in class. That's on the syllabus. So right now, when did we complete it?
So it's due tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make it on Monday.
System familiarization is very hot.
They got about the influence. What happened is I registered this class Sanders. I had registered it again to do that. It was not Sanders.
Well, you had to register again, not because it was unreleased, because you didn't pay your tuition. They put a deadline on tuition on the 20th. They sent an email out on registration day. If the tuition wasn't paid in the class, they dropped you from the class. So you didn't get dropped from the class because it changed to me. Because I came out and taught before my name was actually put on the class. So what they did this time is we've had problems with people not paying the tuition. So what they did this time is they put a deadline. Registration was the deadline for paying the tuition if you're pre-registered. So what they did is they dropped you from the class, and then they required you to re-register. And what that did is that opened up seats for these classes that were full. And so what we've always had a problem with is we have people pre-register for the course, they fill up the class, and then they never show up. And you have people out there that want to get into the class, they can't get into the class because they're full, because all these people are pre-registered, they had to pay their tuition. And they love it. It's going to be that way from now on, because they had the tuition, the response for tuition, by this time last semester, compared to the other semesters, was like 80% increase on people getting their tuition. So since they had such a good turnout this time, every semester, if you can pre-register for the class, that's okay, but you got to have that tuition paid by registration. If you don't have it paid, they drop you from the class. Then if there's other people that's ready to come into it, they can jump in and take your spot, and you're not guaranteed a spot. It didn't hurt you in this class right here because it's not. But the intro to robotics class, that exactly that thing right there had happened. So we had people out there took seats from people that were pre-registered in the course. So you had to re-register, didn't you?
I registered.
Not because of me, because of what?
I didn't pay on time.
Yeah. And then that's what they do. So they purged it on the 20th, and then all the seats were opened back up. And you had to re-register. And they sent out how many emails? Probably 4.
I thought it was like 10.
Might have been 10. And they started it way back there. They're going to try to do, since it works so well, though, that's going to be it. So, you need to think about, it don't mean you have to pay it. They still have that leeway, but you're going to have to re-register for the course. Which is, I know it's rough.
Alright, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
I go,
So we do not have to turn in the system familiarization 2 yet.
not yet. No, this is done here. So, no, these are not done.
Okay. Just wanted to double check.
Yeah, these are due right here.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll probably make these due the week after we get back. And then this is the first lab that
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I had a question. I took this class, well, I took this class. I used this lab with core class, and what's the motor control from?
That's the motor controls, AC/DC machine is using a different lab. If you took the AC/DC motor, that's a different lab. It's got motors. This is the only lab. This is the only class that uses that.
There's a certain class that Mr. Sanders taught me. I ended up using this because I had already used the environment too. And we just work with these
Yeah, but this ain't the right lab. This says what?
industrial motors.
That's not this one.
It's the industrial
This is
controls.
industrial control. Oh, you're right. You use that lab. You use it in motors class. This is not motors.
So I need to know that.
Yeah, I understand that now.
Backwards. Motors. No, it's not backwards. I'm sorry.
Well, you can take them in the class. It's just the lab books look identical. You just got to look. One of them says industrial controls. The other one says industrial motors.
They have the same.
So I need the one that says industrial control.
That's right.
They also have different symbols on the front.
Yeah, you'd be. None of the labs we're going to be doing are in that book.
They have fuse, resistor, coil. Is this manual? They're different symbols.
I thought that, but they look like that.
They do. Unless you look at and we have that happen all the time, and I make a point on the first night of class to make sure you understand that there's 2 different lab books. They look alike, but they're not the same.
It is the same textbook.
Yes, same textbook.
Well, I appreciate